Hey everybody, welcome back to All Things New. My name is Illy, and today I'm going to talk about homosexuality. It's a very big topic when it comes to Christians and Christianity. And one thing I've noticed is that, when you come to Christ, you become new, okay? Your heart changes, your life changes, and everything from your past it just becomes a story. It doesn't even become, it's like the best way to describe it for me is, it's like you become a new character. You're introduced into a new story. And so your past is like a different character. It's like you're going back to a chapter, and you're reading, and you're reading it from a different point of view. So before I started recording, I was thinking, how can I talk about homosexuality as far as my life and what's going on in my life? Well, I think I first have to go back to when I learned, it was first mentioned that homosexuality was a thing. So, story time. So when I was really young, I grew up in a middle-class family. My dad was in the Air Force, and my mom was a housewife. And we were stationed in Panama, the city, Central America, and we lived in an Air Force base. And I remember when I was about 5 or 6 years old, my mom talking about a man in a wheelchair. We were at the beach or something, and she was talking to a friend of hers, and I was at the beach, and there was a guy in a wheelchair a ways, and they were saying that he was gay. And I remember thinking, what does gay mean? And at the time I didn't know what gay meant. She just said that he was sick. I think he had AIDS. This was in the 80s, and she just said that he was gay. And I think at some point my mom explained that he liked men, and even then I didn't get what that meant either. So, but to be honest, I think I was introduced to sexuality earlier than I should have been. Kids are very curious, and there's nothing wrong with kids being curious, but I think that where it goes wrong is when you don't have an adult to kind of guide you with your curiosity. And so out of ignorance, I think a lot of families and a lot of people, instead of explaining things to children about sexuality or their sex organs, they throw it in. They throw it in the closet, and they're like, "We're not going to talk about that right now." And it just gives a shameful overtone, or it gives it an umbrella of shame and guilt. And when you don't talk about it, then when you think about it, the enemy wants you to be in the dark when it comes to stuff like that. So anyway, so that was around the time when I first started learning what gay meant. And then, fast forward to when I was 12, I had a friend who was a Baptist, and she invited me to church, and I became friends with her. And I was a bit of a tomboy when I was 12. I was always in sports. I played a lot with boys. We play because they love to play sports, and so we'd play sports. We'd play adventure games, and I was surrounded by boys because in the neighborhood boys are the only ones I wanted to play. I can never really resonate with girls. You know, they wanted to play dolls and stuff. And at the time, you know, I played with dolls, but something about being more active outside was more appealing to me. So I was a bit of a tomboy. And I think in middle school, you know, when hormones are going awry and kids are talking about going steady, and, you know, I still think that's too young to have a girlfriend or a boyfriend in middle school. And my mom was like, no, you're not going to have a boyfriend in middle school. You're too young. Well, anyway, I think between that, not, you know, being, I had a boyfriend, but I hid it from my mom. Like, I didn't tell her that I had this boy that I liked. And his name was Wesley. I always liked little nerdy guys' name. Anyway, but his name was Wesley, and this was like in 7th or 8th grade. And my mom was like, nope, you know, you're not allowed to have a boyfriend. And so I hid it from her. Not that we did anything, you know, we just said hi to each other and maybe hugged and maybe held hands. But I always felt kind of guilty about it. But anyway, so I remember this girl, Amanda, her name was Amanda, and she was Baptist. And there was this kid named James who was kind of a neighbor. Well, he lived down the street, but he and I were starting to become friends. But he kind of betrayed me, you know. There was a lot of bullying going on in middle school. I didn't like middle school that much. There was a lot of bullying in middle school, and so James started saying things like, I'm a lesbian. And I had no idea what a lesbian meant. And I think he said that honestly because I think he liked me and I didn't like him that way. And Amanda explained to me that there's an island called Sapphos. I don't know. There was Lesbos. She was really into the Bible, and she was learning Greek, and she wanted to learn Hebrew, and she kind of explained to me what a lesbian was. And she said, you know, lesbians are women that want to be with women. And I was just like, that's weird. I thought it was weird. But I didn't think anything else of it. I just thought it was weird. And I think that's when it started, you know, whatever you want to call it, you know, a lot of people in the spiritual side of Christianity think that there are demons that come in, or unclean spirits that, you know, because of sin, you open the door and you allow these things to happen, but, or these thoughts to come in. But at the time, I just was like, okay, a lesbian is a woman that likes women. And I remember developing feelings for this other girl named Kelly. And she was Catholic. And I spent the night with Amanda. You know, you do sleepovers when you have friends. And Amanda, you know, told me that it's okay. What was it that she said? And I felt like it was weird that she was bringing this up. But she's like, it's okay to have homosexual thoughts. It's just not okay to act on it. And I was like, okay. You know, it was still confusing to me. But when I was with Kelly, I felt weird. I felt odd. I started feeling the way I guess you feel when you have a crush on a boy. I started feeling a crush on a girl. And so, again, no way of knowing how to navigate these things, right? You're middle school, you don't know. And so anyway, so I would say that was kind of like the door that was opening when I was 12. Another thing that is a little more vulnerable to say, but I'm going to say it anyway because that's who I am. When I was 12, I saw a movie that showed a rape scene. And I'm convinced that kind of jolted me into thinking that sex could be dangerous, and sex there was something wrong and off about it. And honestly, I was afraid of it. And especially I was afraid of men because of it. And I think that's what really opened the door for me to think that I was gay, because that impression on me of seeing this rape scene. And it was a very subtle rape scene. It wasn't overly aggressive, but it was, you know, a rape scene. I think kind of scarred me for a while. And then, you know, other factors like music at the time was also about love gone wrong and breakups. And I know that the song Wicked Game by Chris Isaak was very popular at this time when I was around 12. It was like around 1990, 1991, maybe 89. I don't know, somewhere around there. And there were also all these songs that were about love gone wrong. And so anyway, that's in a nutshell how I think I became a homosexual. And it's really sad because nowadays kids are so influenced by more, you know. In the 80s and 90s, the technology was just television and music. And now it's like social media and the internet and all these other things. I mean, all coming at you all the time. And they're very powerful. And I'll eventually talk about that kind of stuff and my theories on it. But at the time, that was my influence, was television and movies. You know, 90210 was very popular, that show, Beverly Hills 90210. And those actors were put on pedestals. And that's what celebrity is all about, right? These idols. Which is now that I look at it, actually very dangerous. So anyway, I always want to make these short, but in a nutshell, I really believe that I became homosexual because of a friend of mine coined this, or didn't coin this term, but told me about this term called the principle of first mention. You know, whoever gets to you first will be your truth teller, you know, and instead of your parents getting to you first about sexuality, if the television and music gets to you first, that's your view of sexuality. So it's called the principle of first mention. I gotta do some more research on that. But it's true. Like, my first mention of sexuality didn't come from my parents. You know, my parents had to kind of backtrack and be like, oh, this is what's going on. You know, this is what really this means. And, you know, to a certain degree, it was too late, because it was already imprinted in my mind what sexuality was. So, you know, to be honest, I'm glad I don't have children, because I just find this world way harder than it was when I was a child. So, anyway, so I think in the next video I'll talk more about my journey through becoming a homosexual, and then also about how, you know, homosexuality is a behavior. It's not an identity. And that's where the real danger is. The real danger is thinking that you're born gay and thinking that homosexuality is an identity. Kind of like, I'm Puerto Rican. You know, I was born Puerto Rican, you know, but that's not your identity. You know, like, being a homosexual is not your identity. But it's a cultural impression that has been set, and it's difficult. It's difficult to talk about, but God is greater. God is greater. Hallelujah. So anyway, thank you for hanging out with me for these 15 minutes, and I'll see you on the next video.